Hi boys and girls. Today in social studies we are going to be learning about using a population map and using a map scale. You'll need your social studies book and page 18 and 19, and then you'll also have your pencil and your highlighter. All right, let's get started. Use a population map. Another type of map is a population map. It shows how many people live in an area. Let's pause right there and highlight what a population map shows. A population map shows how many people live in an area. Below is a population map of Florida. As you can see, many people live in the area around Jacksonville. I know that. When I look at this red area and I go over here to my legend or key, it says more than 300,000 people live there. But some areas around the Florida Everglades have a small population. Take a look over here near the Everglades. It's shaded in green. According to our map legend, it says less than 100,000 people. Let's take a look at why. The Florida Everglades is a wetland. A wetland is an area that is covered partly or completely by water. Let's go ahead and highlight what a wetland is. A wetland is an area that is covered partly or completely by water. Few people live in the wetlands because of the physical features of this area. Number 1, what is the purpose of this map? So I need to go back up to my text where it told me what a population map is and what it's used for. A population map shows how many people live in an area. Let's go ahead and write that down for number 1. To show how many people live in an area. Number 2, what type of map scale is used on this map? So here is our map scale. Let me go ahead and label it. Now, there are a couple different types of map scales. So I'm going to skip this question for now and jump to page 19 so we can read about different types of map scales. We'll come back to number 2. Use map scales. No matter what type of map you use, a map scale is a useful tool. A map scale shows the distance from one location to another. Let's stop and highlight what a map scale shows. A map scale shows the distance from one location to another. Map makers use different types of map scales to measure the distance between locations. Let's learn about the first one. A linear scale uses a straight line. Miles and kilometers are shown on the line. A linear scale is best to measure long distances, like the distance from Miami to Orlando. Let's highlight what a linear scale uses and when we might use it. It uses a straight line, and it's best when measuring long distances. Let's take a look back at number 2 on page 18. We were taking a look at the population map of Florida, and it was showing lots of different major cities in the state of Florida. When I look at our map scale, it uses a straight line, and I can use it to help me find out, say, the distance between Miami and Jacksonville, which would be a pretty long distance. So let's go ahead and write that the map scale used on this map would be called a linear scale. All right, let's read about a couple other different types of scales. A word scale, also called a language scale, actually has words in it. You might use a word scale if you are making a map of a city. For example, 1 inch on your map might be equal to 1 mile in the city. 1 inch equals 1 mile. Let's highlight what a word scale is for. A word scale, also called a language scale, has words in it. It is usually used when you are making a map of a city, so a shorter distance. The next one is a fractional scale. A fractional scale uses fractions, like 1 out of 100. This type of scale would be useful if you were making a map of a small area, such as your classroom. Let's go ahead and highlight what a fractional scale uses and when we might find it. A fractional scale uses fractions, and it's usually used when you're making a map of a small area. 1 inch on your map might be equal to 100 inches in the classroom. Let's take a look over here where it says circle the map scale you might use if you made a map of your city. Now, I remember that a city would be a shorter distance. So let's go ahead and find when I would find this type of scale. A word scale, also called a language scale, actually has words in it. And remember what we found out. You might use a word scale if you're making a map of a city. So let's go ahead and circle the section that talks about a word scale. All right. And lastly, let's take a look at the bottom, our essential question. Throughout lesson 1, we learned all about where we live, but we also learned about the different types of maps there are and map scales that we might use to help us locate different places. Why is it important to know about where we live? Now, this is an open-ended question, so we're going to challenge you to answer the question on your own. We want to go ahead and help you get started, so let's start by restating the question. We're going to cross out our question words and say, it is important to know about where we live because when I think about the importance of knowing where I live, I know that if I live in the state of Florida, then I understand what other states might border my state of Florida. Knowing that I live in the United States of America as my country, I can take a look at what countries might border the United States of America. And then lastly, when I know that I live in North America as my continent, I can also have a better understanding of where I am located on the globe and what other continents surround me. So now it's your turn. You go ahead and tell us, why do you think it's important to know about where we live?